What's up, folks? Sean the Average Angler coming at you with another great video. And hoorah, I got out to go fishing yesterday. Had a pretty good day, actually. The bite was not what I expected. And this is the thing about fishing. You just never really know. The fish don't read the book of what they should be doing. And, well, that was purely on display pretty much the whole time I fished. I only fished 4 hours. I caught a limit of bass. I caught over 5 crappie. I got a new camera. I really like it. It's an Insta360. However, I still am no camera expert. And I don't know what happened after the first fish I caught, but I'm thinking that I didn't have enough power left in the battery for it to record. The camera was still on, but it didn't record. And then once I was heading, well, later in the day, I plugged it into a battery pack. So I got a couple clips after that. Unfortunately, I got no fish after that. But I did get a limit. I got them all on the same bait. Look, I went out with this rig, so it's not that I wasn't expecting it to maybe get a few bites, but I wasn't expecting it to get all of the bites. And that's what ended up happening. And that is that rig right there, okay? That is a Beast Coast sniper jig in the color 1/2 ounce MB pumpkin. And what I'll point out here is that this bait has very thin skirting, okay? Now you can do this with just about any jig you want. Here is a Bass Union that I did the same thing to, and essentially what I did was I cut out the inner strands. So the strands that are on the inside, I just cut those out, and this is what we have. The advantage to doing that, and why I do like to do that, is it really brings your trailer more into play, right? You can see the whole trailer there on that jig. Now you can't tell that I shortened it a little bit. I did. I took two nubs off of it, okay? Which about a 1/2 inch. Now in the video you're going to see how well they were eating this. I threw chatterbaits. I cranked quite a bit. I threw the shaky head, which is what I typically do so well at this lake when these fish are kind of on this pattern. And where I found the fish, we'll go into that in the voiceover. I'm going to do a voiceover over the video because one thing on the new camera is the voice is not as good. So I think I'm going to have to hook up something Bluetooth in order to fix that, make it better. Now the other bait that I was catching fish on was this 2.5 inch Crush City Mayor. And it was just on that ball head, and they are really schooled up on the bait. I mean, the crappie were all over the place. There's no shortage of crappie population in my lake, and every once in a while I would just throw into them. You know, I'd just toss my bait down into them and they'd eat it. That said, I wished I'd have had this with me because this gets bit way better than anything else I've used for crappie. Okay, this comes from a guy up in the north somewhere, custom fly tying. I will put a link for you because I actually just got an email from him recently, but I bought a bunch of these last year. I've yet to lose one. I still have them all, and I tell you, the crappie just go nuts for this thing. All right, let's go take a look at the video, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more after that. But pay attention because I really give you an opportunity here to see how I walked that jig through cover and mostly rocks. And I will point out, it pretty good, man, because I fished that jig all day. It's the only one I used. No break-offs, nothing. Hook's still in good shape. Wait till you see how they were eating it. Okay, so here I am trying to make an adjustment to what's going on. There's really not a whole lot going on. I'm seeing a lot of fish and bait activity, mostly crappie. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing any bass moving around. So I'm going to my old staple of the fish are sucked tight to the bottom on structure. Mostly in this lake, it's isolated rock, oftentimes one solo rock by itself. So typically, when this is going on, the shaky head with a fatty Z works really well for me. So I'm making this change right now and putting on a fatty Z. There you go. And we're going to target some of these isolated rocks. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out with the worm for some reason. They just weren't into it today. So at this point, we're kind of covering water. We're moving down a steeper bank with a lot of that isolated rock on it. Swapping back and forth between a crankbait, a jig, and the shaky head. Right now, I'm throwing the jig to isolated rock. Picking the spinning rod back up. Nope. Jig. All right, here we are. We're fishing on a steeper bank. We're fishing some isolated rock right here. Down to pretty deep water, actually. This creek channel runs just off to the left of me here, which is the deepest area in the lake. And there we go. I pop it off of a rock. It gets sucked in. I have to reel down on it to catch up to that fish because he knocked a lot of slack into the line, which is one of my favorite jig bites anytime I'm jig fishing. You can see Cora gets very excited when we get fish. She's been moping around all morning telling me, boy, you got to get your act together and catch me a fish. So here we've got one, and it's a good one. This is a good fish for this lake. Now, on this day, I didn't bring my typical jig rods. I just rigged up a 704 Powell, which is a great jig rod. It's not one of my specialty jig rods, if you will. It's more of a do-everything type of rod. You can see Cora's getting real excited here. She loves fish. All right, well, this fish ate it really deep, and you're going to see this in just a moment. And this is, when this happens, this is a good sign that you're throwing the right bait. Actually, 4 of the 5 or 5 of the 6 fish that I caught throughout the day had all eaten the bait like this. Now, if you're paying attention to what I'm doing here, I'm going up through the gill plate, grabbing onto that hook and just reversing it. Okay, no blood, nothing, and that fish had that bait deep. This is a good way to take care of the fish instead of trying to force it out the top or cut it off. So we're going to weigh the fish here. If I can figure out where one of the 2 scales is at. There we go. All right, very simply put, this fish weighed 4.05 pounds. Was our first of the day, but it kind of really clued me in that the jig was something that they were keyed into right now. I think this transition is just coming around because, quite honestly, all of the fish I caught had pretty sharp teeth. That was the best one for the day. The rest of the fish were decent, anywhere from 3 to 1.5 pounds. I caught one small one up shallow. All the rest of them that came off the isolated rock were pretty decent fish. Now here I am trying to get back on this same little area, and I worked around this point from both sides quite a bit and missed a few bites. A couple of them, I believe, were crappie because they just had the back of the trailer and pulled it down. And just the way the rest of the bass that I did catch were eating it, it was down their throat. So sometimes, then I did catch some crappie here, by the way, when I threw the swim bait. So not real surprising to me. Like I said, there's bait and crappie all over the lake and places I was fishing. So we're just trying to probe it from different angles, different rocks, different depths, all these different things, because this point is very unique in that it drops off fairly sharp on one side, then the other side is a little more tapering into shallower water, which I actually spent quite a bit of time there because there was quite a bit of fish around. I ended up catching one on the other side, one or two. But if you watch the rod tip here, I'm just snapping the rod tip. Very small snaps, okay? I'm just kind of trying to jiggle the jig up and over rocks and through them. And then you're kind of sliding the bait at the same time. But if you just drag the bait into rocks, you'll drag it into crevices. I like to do these little small pops, and it puts a little action into that jig, and probably as my imagination goes from looking at the bait in the pool, is I'm moving the claws and getting them to wave at the fish. Now you got to pay attention, and when you are getting snagged, if it won't pop out, I just take the boat over the top to the other side, pop it a couple times, and fortunately for me on this day, they came out every time. All right, just making some different angle casts here and trying to change up tempo and angles to try and find some interested fish. This is a spot, like I said, that drops off on one side into deeper water, and then the other side's kind of a shallower little gully there between that point and the island you see behind it. And the fish will move up onto this area to feed. It's a great feeding spot, and I've caught some really big fish here, so it wasn't something that I just wanted to give up on. Not to mention there's a school of crappie hanging out on that break line on this point, feasting on a big ball of bait. So, I mean, everything was there that you could want in order to attract big fish and catch big fish. Probably should have thrown a glide bait over this thing to see if we could trigger something, because I know they were around. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean they're not there. Okay, so there you have it. That was my day on the water, or at least a part of it. I apologize for not getting more video. It really is my intent to go out there and get a whole bunch of video. I'm not the best at technology, as you probably have figured out by now. This was a day on a very pressured lake, I might add. If you guys have watched me talk about my home lake again, it is in San Jose, California, with a population well over 1 million people. It's the only lake that is open for boating in my area, and it's a very small lake. They actually limit the number of boats, although we didn't get to that point on this day. But it doesn't take a whole lot. In several points, you'll see the big rollers coming through. Those are from those boats out there. They do the surfing thing behind the boat, put out obnoxious waves, and sometimes they really don't care how close they're coming by you. But anyway, I digress. I think I covered pretty much what I was doing in the video. Again, I wasn't seeing the fish actively on live target. I believe they were laying on the bottom or up against the rocks. They just weren't visible. A lot of times when my crankbait bite's going on, I can see the fish moving down the bank, this and that, kind of looking for food. That's just not the case right now. And this is something that can happen during the summer to fall transition, as those fish are really waiting for something to come into play. The bait in my lake is small. I've never even snagged a shad cranking, which is really, really odd, because normally when you're cranking through thick balls of shad, you'll come up with some shad. Well, these shad here are pretty small, and the bass don't always seem very interested in them. Although I'm sure there are some pelagics out in the middle of the lake just chasing the bait around. I know the crappie do it, because I've chased them, so I assume the bass are doing it too. Somewhere there's got to be a bigger size threadfin shad in this lake. There is a part of the lake that's off limits to boats. You can't go into it. Unfortunately, it's some of the best cover on the lake. It's also on the side where one of the dams is and some of the deeper waters over there. So anyway, it is what it is. You make do with what you got. It's 20 minutes from my house, so it's a convenient place to go fish for a few hours. And like I said, hey, I got a limit. It's not bad for 4 hours. It's not really what I'm looking for. I'm one of those guys that wants to catch them a lot of fish and some good fish to boot. And we've had those days out there, and hopefully we'll figure it out here, and we'll have one of those days again soon. Thanks for watching. I'm Sean the Average Angler. We'll see you on the next one.